The stars had never looked so cold. Ambassador Park stood at the observation window of station and watched the enemy ships circle like hungry wolves. There were 17 of them out there in the darkness. 17 warships with enough firepower to turn the station into floating dust. 11 days. They had been trapped here for 11 days now. Behind her in the lower levels of the station, 3,000 refugees waited for death or rescue. Most of them were children, children with their soft blue skin and large dark eyes. They had come here seeking safety from the war that burned across their home system. Instead, they had found another trap. Pressed her hand against the cold glass. She was 43 years old. She had spent 20 years building bridges between species, negotiating peace treaties, and believing that words could solve any problem. Now she understood that some problems only understood violence. The station shook as another blast hit the outer shields. The lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, she heard children crying. Lieutenant Commander walked up behind her. He was the only military officer on the station, one soldier to protect 3,000 souls. His face was tired and his uniform was stained with grease from helping repair damaged systems. "Ambassador," he said quietly, "we received a response from the Alliance." Turned to look at him. She saw something in his eyes that made her heart sink before he even spoke the words. "What did they say?" Handed her a tablet. The message was short, official, cold. "No fleets available. Hold position. Estimated relief time, 42 standard days." Read the words 3 times. Each time they felt less real. 42 days. They had supplies for 6, maybe 7 if they cut rations again. "That is not possible," she said softly. "No, agreed, it is not." They stood in silence for a long moment. Outside, the Dominion ships continued their slow patrol. They were in no hurry. They knew their prey had nowhere to go. The Dominion was not a government or a nation. It was a collection of warlords and pirates who had grown strong enough to challenge the Galactic Alliance itself. They took what they wanted. They killed anyone who stood in their way. And right now, they wanted station. Not for the refugees, not for the supplies. They wanted it as a message, a symbol, proof that the Alliance could not protect anyone. Doctor found in the medical bay an hour later was the station's chief medical officer. She was small and thin with gray streaks in her black hair. Her eyes were kind but worried. "The children are getting worse," said. "The life support systems are failing on decks 7 through 12. Oxygen levels are dropping." "Can you fix it?" "We are trying, but every time we repair something, another system fails. The station was not built for this many people. We are using too much air, too much water, too much of everything." Closed her eyes. She thought about the children. They were so young. Some of them were barely able to walk. They had already lost their homes, their families, their entire world. Now they would lose their lives too. "How long?" asked. 3 days, maybe 4. After that, the youngest ones will start to die." The words hung in the air like poison. That night, the Dominion commander broadcast another message. His name was Admiral, and his face appeared on every screen in the station. He was tall and with eyes that held no mercy. "People of station," he said, "you have been abandoned. Your alliance cannot save you. Your fleet is too far away. Your leaders do not care if you live or die." Watch the broadcast with clenched fists. "Surrender now," continued. "Open your doors and let us in. We will take what we need and leave. Resist and we will destroy you all, every man, every woman, every child. You have until morning to decide." The screen went dark. In the silence that followed, heard something she had not heard in 11 days. Hope burst into the room. His face was different now. Not happy exactly, but alive in a way it had not been before. "Ambassador, our sensors detected something at the edge of the system." "Another Dominion ship." "No," shook his head. "The signature is different. It is small, fast, and it is coming directly toward us." Followed him to the command center. The room was dark except for the glow of screens and displays. A small group of station workers had gathered around the main sensor console. On the screen she saw it, a tiny dot of light moving through the endless black. It was too small to be an Alliance carrier, too fast to be a cargo ship. Its signature was strange, foreign. "What is it?" asked. One of the technicians looked up at her. His eyes were wide. "It is human," he said. The word spread through the station like fire. Human. A human ship was coming. Had met humans before. They were newcomers to the galaxy. Their species had only discovered faster-than-light travel 60 years ago. They were small compared to the great powers. Their technology was crude. Their fleet was tiny. But she had heard stories. Everyone had heard stories. Stories about humans who fought battles they could not win. Stories about humans who ran toward danger instead of away from it. Stories about a species that measured courage not in strength, but in will. The Dominion fleet detected the ship too. Admiral opened a channel to the tiny vessel. "Unknown ship," he said. "Identify yourself and leave this area immediately. This is Dominion territory." The response came after a long pause. It was a single voice, male, calm, speaking in the common tongue with an accent had never heard before. "This is Captain Lee of the USS Defiance, Earth Fleet. We received a distress signal from station. We are responding." Laughed, the sound was ugly and cruel. "One ship, you bring one ship against my fleet. Turn back now, little human. This does not concern you." Another pause, then the human captain spoke again. "Admiral, there are 3,000 refugees on that station. Most of them are children. I am asking you, one captain to another, to let them go. And if I refuse?" The human's voice did not change. It remained calm and steady. "Then I will make you." The channel closed. Stared at the screen. The tiny dot of light continued its approach. It did not slow down. It did not turn away. It flew straight towards 17 warships like it did not understand what fear meant. Maybe it did not. Maybe that was what it meant to be human. In the refugee quarters below was treating a sick child when the news reached her. A human ship was coming. Help was coming. The child looked up at her with large dark eyes. "Will we be okay?" the child asked in its soft, musical voice. Thought about the one small ship flying toward an entire fleet. She thought about the impossible odds. She thought about everything she knew about humans. Then she smiled. "Yes," she said, "I think we will." Outside, the stars did not look so cold anymore. The USS Defiance was not a big ship. By galactic standards, it was barely more than a patrol boat. 400 meters from bow to stern. 180 crew members. A handful of weapons that most alien species would consider outdated. But the Defiance was built by humans, and humans had a very different understanding of what a warship should be. Captain Lee stood on the bridge and studied the tactical display. The holographic image showed stations surrounded by red dots. 17 enemy ships, cruisers, destroyers, frigates. Each one was larger than the Defiance. Each one carried more weapons. Together, they had enough firepower to crack a small moon. His executive officer commander stood beside him. She was tall and serious with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had served with for 7 years. She knew how he thought. She knew what he was planning. "Captain," she said quietly, "the odds are not good." "I know. We are 90 to 1. I know. The logical thing to do would be to retreat, report what we found, come back with reinforcements." Did not answer right away. He looked at the display, at the small blue dot that represented the station, at the 3,000 lives waiting inside it. "How many children are on that station?" he asked. Checked her data pad. According to the distress signal, approximately 2,300, mostly refugees. Nodded slowly. He thought about his own daughter back on Earth. She was 8 years old. She had the same big eyes as those alien children, the same trust that adults would keep her safe. "We are not leaving," he said. Did not argue. She had known what his answer would be before she asked the question. That was why she followed him. That was why the entire crew followed him. "Then we need a plan," she said. Smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. "I have one." He opened a channel to station. The face that appeared on the screen was a woman with tired eyes and dark hair streaked with gray. Ambassador Park. "This is Captain Lee of the USS Defiance," he said. "We received your distress beacon. We are here to help." The ambassador stared at him like she was seeing a ghost. "Captain Lee," she said, "you cannot be serious. There is an entire fleet out there. You are one ship, one small ship." "I am aware of the situation, Ambassador." "Then you know this is suicide. You should leave, save your crew, tell the galaxy what happened here. Do not throw your lives away." Shook his head. "Ma'am, with respect, we are not going anywhere. We are human. We do not calculate odds. We calculate stakes. And the stakes here are 3,000 innocent lives." There was a long silence. looked at him with something in her eyes that might have been wonder, or disbelief, or hope. "Who are you people?" she whispered. "We are just humans," said. "Nothing special, but we do not leave people behind. It is not in our nature." The channel closed. On the Defiance, the crew prepared for battle. Weapons officer Minu ran final checks on the ship's torpedo systems. He was young, only 28, but he had studied warfare his entire life. Not just human warfare, but the tactics of every species they had encountered. Chief Engineer pushed the engines harder than they were designed to go. She knew every bolt and wire on the ship. She had built half of them herself. If anyone could squeeze extra power from the reactors, it was her. Navigation officer plotted approach vectors. He calculated trajectories that would take them through the enemy formation at maximum speed. His hands were steady even though his heart was racing. Dr. Song prepared the medical bay for casualties. She knew they were coming. In a battle like this, people would get hurt, people would die. Her job was to save as many as she could. Admiral contacted them again. His face filled the main screen. He looked amused, like a cat watching a mouse pretend to be brave. "Little human," he said, "I will give you one last chance. Turn around, run away, live another day. This is not your fight." Stood tall on his bridge. Behind him, his crew watched in silence. Admiral said, "Those people on that station asked for help. They sent a signal into the void and hoped someone would answer. We answered. That makes it our fight. You will die. Maybe, but we will die trying to save innocent lives. What will you die for, Admiral? Greed, power, fear?" Shook his head. "I think our death will mean more than yours." His face twisted with anger. "Fool, idealistic fool. I have conquered 30 systems. I have crushed fleets 10 times your size. You are nothing. Your species is nothing. And I will prove it by turning your ship into dust." "Then stop talking," said calmly, "and start shooting." The channel went dead. "Turn 2, orders, Captain." Looked around his bridge. He saw fear in some eyes, determination in others, hope in a few. They were all young. Most of them had never seen real combat, but they were here. They had chosen to be here. "Listen to me," he said. His voice carried across the bridge clear and strong. "I will not lie to you. This will be the hardest fight of our lives. Some of us will not make it home. I cannot promise you victory. I cannot promise you survival." He paused. The silence was heavy. "But I can promise you this. What we do today will matter. Those children on that station will remember us. The galaxy will remember us. They will remember that when no one else came, humans came. When hope was lost, humans brought it back." He took a deep breath. "We are not fighting to win. We are fighting because it is right. Because somewhere out there, 3,000 people are praying for a miracle. And today, we are that miracle." Minu spoke up. "Weapons ready, Captain." "Engines at maximum," reported. "Course plotted," added. Looked at and nodded. "The crew is ready, sir, all of them." Smiled. He felt proud, proud of his ship, proud of his people, proud to be human. "Then let us show them what we are made of," he said. "All hands battle stations, prepare for combat." The Defiance surged forward. Its engines burned bright against the endless darkness. It was one small ship against an empire, one tiny light against the night. On station, the refugees watched through every window. They saw the human ship approaching. They saw it accelerate toward certain death. Elder turned to Ambassador. His voice was old and tired. "Why do they do this? They have no chance. They gain nothing by dying here." Watch the human ship fly into battle. She thought about Captain Lee's words, about stakes and odds, about doing what was right. "Because they are human," she said softly, "and humans never learned how to give up." The first shots lit up the void like lightning. The battle had begun. And somewhere in the darkness, hope was still alive. The battle began at 3:47 station time. The first plasma bolt missed the Defiance by less than 50 meters. The second one hit the forward shields and made the whole ship shake. Captain Lee grabbed his command chair and shouted orders. "Evasive pattern Delta, return fire." The Defiance twisted through space like a dancer. It was smaller than the enemy ships, but that made it faster, more agile, harder to hit. Minu worked his console with practiced hands. His fingers flew across the controls. Torpedoes launched from the forward tubes. Energy beams cut through the darkness. He was not trying to destroy the enemy ships. He knew he could not. He was trying to confuse them, distract them, make them angry. Angry enemies made mistakes. and the Defiance needed them to make mistakes. Direct hit on enemy frigate, Minu reported. Minor damage to their weapons array. Keep firing, ordered. Target their sensors, their communications, anything that disrupts their coordination. The Dominion fleet was not used to this kind of fight. They were used to overwhelming force. They were used to enemies who stood still and died. They had never faced a ship that refused to be hit. Admiral screamed orders from his flagship. Surround them, cut off their escape. I want that ship destroyed. His ships moved to obey. They spread out in a wide circle, trying to trap the Defiance in a net of firepower. It should have worked. Against any other enemy, it would have worked. But had studied human history. He knew about Thermopylae, where 300 soldiers held off an army of thousands. He knew about Drift, where 150 men defended against 4,000. He knew about Wake Island, where a handful of Marines fought for weeks against impossible odds. Humans had been fighting superior forces since the beginning of their history. They had lost many times, but they had never stopped trying, and sometimes, just sometimes, they won. Helm, take us into their formation, ordered. Looked at him with wide eyes. Sir, into the formation. Close range, point blank. They will not be able to shoot us without hitting each other. It was insane, it was reckless, it was completely human. Nodded and pushed the engines to maximum. The Defiance shot forward like a bullet. It dove straight into the heart of the enemy fleet. Chaos exploded around them. At close range, the Dominion ships could not coordinate their fire. They tried to track the tiny human vessel, but it was too fast, too unpredictable. Their shots went wide. Some of them hit other Dominion ships by accident. Enemy cruiser just hit their own destroyer, reported, almost laughing. They are firing on each other. The Defiance wove between the massive warships. It was like a mouse running between the feet of elephants. Dangerous, terrifying, but also exactly where the elephants could not stomp. On station, Lieutenant Commander watched the battle through the sensor display. His mouth hung open. He had never seen anything like this. They are insane, he whispered. Ambassador stood beside him. Her hands were clasped together so tight her knuckles were white. No, she said, they are brave. The battle continued for hours. The Defiance took damage, a lot of damage. The forward shields failed after the first hour. Hull breaches opened on decks 3 and 4. 17 crew members died when a plasma bolt punched through the starboard side. But the ship kept fighting. Chief Engineer worked miracles in the engine room. She rerouted power from damaged systems. She sealed breaches with emergency patches. She kept the engines running through sheer willpower. Come on, she muttered to her ship. Stay with me just a little longer. In the medical bay, Dr. Song treated the wounded without pause. Burn victims, shrapnel wounds, broken bones. She moved from patient to patient, saving lives with steady hands and calm words. You are going to be fine, she told a young ensign whose leg was badly burned. I promise, we are going to get through this. The ensign looked up at her with pain-filled eyes. Are we winning? Thought about the battle raging outside, about the damage to the ship, about the friends she had already lost. We are still fighting, she said. That means we have not lost. On the bridge, refused to sit down. He stood at his command station, directing the battle like a conductor leading an orchestra. His uniform was torn. Blood dripped from a cut on his forehead, but his voice never wavered. Target that cruiser's engine section. Force them to slow down. Aye, Captain. The Defiance fired another volley. The cruiser's engines flickered and died. One more enemy ship out of the fight. Admiral was furious. He had expected this battle to last minutes. Now it had stretched into hours. He had lost 4 ships already. 4 ships to one tiny human vessel. He opened a channel to the Defiance. Why, he demanded. Why do you fight for them? They are not your species. They are not your people. They are nothing to you. Looked at the screen. At the face of the man who had threatened to kill 3,000 children. You do not understand, said quietly, and that is why you will never win. Explain it to me then. What makes those aliens worth your lives? Thought for a moment. He thought about his crew, about the sacrifices they had made, about the ones who had already died. Because they needed help, he said finally. That is enough. That is always enough. Face twisted with confusion. That makes no sense. I know, said. That is what makes us human. The channel closed. The battle raged on. The Defiance was breaking apart. Life support failed on Deck 4. The weapon systems were running on backup power. The hull was scored with 100 wounds. But every minute they survived was another minute of hope for Station. In the refugee quarters, the children had gathered at the windows. Their blue skin glowed softly in the dim light. They watched the distant flashes of the battle. They did not fully understand what was happening, but they knew that someone was fighting for them. Doctor sat with the youngest children. She held them close when the station shook. She told them stories to keep them calm. Once upon a time, she said, there was a species that came from a small blue planet. They were not the strongest. They were not but they had something special. What? The small child asked. They had hearts, said. They cared about others, even strangers, even aliens they had never met. When someone needed help, they came, no matter how far, no matter how dangerous. The children listened with wide eyes. And that is why, continued, even when everything seems dark, we should never lose hope, because somewhere out there a human might be coming. Outside, the battle continued. The Defiance was wounded but unbroken. Its crew was exhausted but determined. They fought not for victory but for something greater. They fought for hope. And hope, as the galaxy was learning, was the most powerful weapon humanity possessed. 6 hours into the battle, the Defiance was dying. The ship had taken more damage than any vessel was designed to survive. 3 of its 4 engines were offline. The shields were completely gone. The hull had been breached in a dozen places, and emergency were the only thing keeping the crew alive. Captain Lee sat in his command chair. He had finally sat down, not by choice, but because he no longer had the strength to stand. His left arm hung useless at his side, broken in 2 places. Blood had dried on his face in dark streaks. But his eyes were still sharp, his mind was still clear, and he was still giving orders. "Status report," he said. Commander looked at her console. Her face was pale and tired, but her voice was steady. "We have lost 41 crew members. Another 60 are wounded. Main weapons are offline. We have 3 torpedoes left. Engine power at 12%. She paused. "Captain, we cannot take much more." Nodded slowly. He had known this was coming. He had known from the beginning that they could not win this fight, but winning had never been the goal. The goal was to buy time, to give hope, to show the galaxy that someone cared. "How long can we hold?" he asked. "Maybe another hour, maybe less." Closed his eyes. He thought about his crew, about the brave men and women who had followed him into this impossible battle. They had done everything he had asked and more. "That will have to be enough," he said quietly. Then something happened that no one expected. A new signal appeared on the sensors, then another, then a dozen more. Stared at his console in disbelief. "Captain, multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace." His heart sank. More Dominion reinforcements, of course, because the universe was never fair. But then looked up, and there were tears in his eyes. "They are not Dominion, sir. They are civilians." The first ship to arrive was a trading vessel called the Morning Light. It was old and slow, designed to carry cargo, not fight battles. It had no weapons, no shields worth mentioning, no military training of any kind. But it came anyway. Its captain sent a message on the open channel. His voice was rough with emotion. "We heard what you were doing," he said. "We heard that a human ship was dying to protect our children. We could not sit by and do nothing." Behind the Morning Light came more ships, a freighter, a transport, a hospital ship, a dozen others from a dozen different species. None of them were warships. All of them were unarmed. All of them had heard the story of the one human vessel that refused to abandon hope. They formed a line between Station and the Dominion fleet, a wall of civilian ships, a barrier of ordinary people who had found their courage. On the bridge of the Defiance, watched the display with tears streaming down her face. "Captain," she whispered, "look at them all." Looked, he saw freighters and transports. He saw medical ships and passenger liners. He saw the answer to his prayer. "They came," he said softly. "They actually came." Admiral was not pleased. He stared at the wall of civilian vessels blocking his path. His face was red with anger. "Move aside," he broadcast. "You are interfering with Dominion operations. I will destroy anyone who does not leave immediately." The captain of the Morning Light answered him. "Then you will have to destroy us all. We have seen what humans are willing to sacrifice for strangers. We will not let that sacrifice be wasted. Hesitated, he could destroy the civilian ships easily. They were defenseless. It would take only minutes. But they came from a dozen different species, a dozen different worlds. If he killed them all, he would unite the entire galaxy against the Dominion. Every system, every government, every species would become his enemy. And all because of one human ship. Cowards, he spat, hiding behind civilians. Opened a channel to his flagship. Admiral, he said, this is Captain Lee. It seems you have a problem. Glared at him through the screen. You think this changes anything? You think a few unarmed ships can stop me? I think they just did. His face twisted with rage. He was about to respond when his sensors screamed a warning. The Defiance was moving. Its damaged engines had somehow come back online. It was flying directly towards flagship. What are you doing? Demanded. Smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. We have 3 torpedoes left, and I know exactly where I want to put them. In the engine room had done the impossible. She had coaxed one final burst of power from the dying reactors. It would not last long, a few minutes at most, but a few minutes was all they needed. Come on, baby, she whispered to her ship. One more time, do it for the kids. The engines roared to life. The Defiance shot forward. It dove through the civilian fleet, past the surprised Dominion ships, straight towards flagship. On the bridge, Minu prepared the last 3 torpedoes. His hands were steady. His aim was perfect. Torpedoes ready, Captain. Fire. 3 bright lights streaked across the void. They hit flagship in a perfect triangle pattern. The explosions tore through the ship's command section. For a moment, everything was silent. Then flagship broke apart. It split into 3 pieces, each one spinning away into the darkness. Secondary explosions lit up the wreckage like fireworks. Admiral was dead. The Dominion fleet fell into chaos. Without their leader, without their confidence, they no longer knew what to do. Some ships tried to retreat. Others fired randomly at nothing. Their formation collapsed. Within minutes, they were running. The entire fleet scattered into the void, fleeing from one damaged human ship and a wall of unarmed civilians. On station, the refugees watched in disbelief. The enemy was leaving. The battle was over. They had won. An elder fell to his knees and wept. Ambassador Park covered her face with her hands and sobbed. Lieutenant Commander simply stood still, unable to process what he had seen. In the refugee quarters, Doctor hugged the children close. It is over, she told them. We are safe. The humans saved us. The children cheered. Their blue skin glowed bright with joy. They did not fully understand what had happened, but they understood one thing. They were alive. The Defiance drifted in space, its engines finally dead. The ship was broken beyond repair. It would never fly again. But its crew was alive, most of them anyway. Captain Lee slumped in his chair. His vision was going dark. He had lost too much blood. His body was finally giving out. Knelt beside him. Captain, she said urgently, stay with me. Medical team is on the way. Looked at her with unfocused eyes. Did we do it? He whispered. Are the children safe? Yes, sir, they are safe. We won. Smiled. It was the most peaceful smile had ever seen. Good, he said. That is good. Then his eyes closed, and he said nothing more. Held his hand and prayed. For the first time in her life, she prayed. Outside, the stars shone bright against the endless darkness, and somewhere in that darkness, a legend was being born. The aftermath of the battle was quiet. The Dominion fleet had scattered into the void, running from a ghost. The civilian ships that had formed the wall remained in place, their crews unable to believe what they had just witnessed. The Defiance floated dead in space. Its hull was with 100 wounds. Its engines were silent. Its lights were dim. From the outside, it looked like a corpse. But inside, life remained. Medical teams from the civilian ships rushed to help. They boarded the Defiance through emergency airlocks and found a scene of controlled chaos. Wounded crew members lay in hallways. Damaged control teams had collapsed from exhaustion beside the systems they had fought to save. And on the bridge, Captain Lee lay unconscious in his chair, his hands still gripped by Commander. Get the captain to surgery, a medic ordered. He has lost too much blood. We need to move fast. They carried off the bridge on a stretcher, walked beside him the whole way. She refused to let go of his hand. You have to survive, she told him quietly. You do not get to die after winning a battle like that. It would not be fair. Did not respond. He was too deep in darkness to hear her. In the medical bay of the morning light, surgeons worked for 6 hours to save him. They replaced the blood he had lost. They repaired his broken bones. They fought death with every tool they had. And in the end, death lost. Woke up 3 days later. The first thing he saw was a white ceiling. The first thing he heard was the soft beep of medical equipment. The first thing he felt was pain, a lot of pain. Welcome back, Captain. He turned his head, sat in a chair beside his bed. Her face was tired but relieved. She looked like she had not slept in days. How long? Asked. His voice was rough. 3 days. The doctors say you are very lucky. Another hour without treatment and you would have died. The crew's face grew serious. 41 dead, 63 wounded, but everyone else survived. The ship is destroyed, but we saved most of the people. Closed his eyes. 41 names he would have to learn. 41 letters he would have to write. 41 families who would never see their loved ones again. And the station, he asked. This time smiled. Safe, all 3,000 refugees survived. The Dominion fleet retreated. Admiral is confirmed dead. She paused. Captain, we won. Nodded slowly. It did not feel like a victory. It felt like survival, but sometimes survival was victory enough. On station, the mood was different. The refugees were celebrating. The children ran through the corridors, laughing and playing for the first time in weeks. Their blue skin glowed bright with happiness. Ambassador Park watched them with tears in her eyes. She had been certain they would all die. She had prepared herself for the end. Instead, she had witnessed a miracle. Lieutenant Commander approached her. Ambassador, we have received a message from the Galactic Alliance Council. They want a full report on what happened here. Nodded. I will write one. The galaxy needs to know the truth. What will you tell them? Thought for a long moment. She thought about the hopeless days of siege, about the message saying no help was coming, about the single human ship that had appeared from the void. I will tell them that humanity is not what we thought, she said finally. They are not primitives. They are not violent barbarians. They are something else entirely. What are they? Looked out the window at the stars. They are the ones who come when no one else will. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. Within a week, every species had heard the story. The lone human warship, the impossible battle, the captain who had asked not about odds but about stakes. On 100 worlds, beings gathered to discuss what it meant. In council chambers and trading posts, in temples and schools, in homes and ships, the question was asked, who are these humans? The answers varied. Some called them foolish, some called them dangerous, some called them insane. But most called them heroes. On Earth, the story was received with quiet pride. Lee became a name known to every child. The crew of the Defiance became legends. Songs were written about them. Stories were told. Their sacrifice became part of humanity's collective memory. But for the survivors, life went on. Took command of a new ship. She named it Defiance II in honor of those who had fallen. Her first mission was a rescue operation near the Outer Rim. Some things never changed. Minyu received a medal for his actions during the battle. He gave it to the family of a young gunner who had died at his station. He earned it more than I did, Minyu said. Retired from active service. She took a job teaching engineering at the Fleet Academy on Earth. Every year, on the anniversary of the battle, she visited a memorial where 41 names were carved in stone. Dr. Song wrote a book about her experiences. It was called The Day We Became Human. It became required reading at medical schools across the galaxy. Married a woman he met on station. Their wedding was attended by beings from 12 different species. At the reception, he gave a toast to the Defiance, to her crew, and to the belief that kindness is never wasted. And Captain Lee. He recovered fully, though he walked with a limp for the rest of his life. The Galactic Alliance offered him admiralship, command of an entire fleet. He turned it down. I am not meant to sit behind a desk, he told them. Give me another ship, a small one, something that can get to places that need help. They gave him a patrol vessel, nothing fancy, just a fast ship with a good crew and standing orders to respond to distress calls anywhere in the sector. He spent the next 30 years doing exactly that, answering calls for help, rescuing people who had lost hope, showing the galaxy what it meant to be human. On station, a statue was built in the plaza outside the medical center. It showed a human figure standing tall, one hand reaching out toward the stars. The base of the statue carried a simple inscription. They came when no one else would. Every year on the anniversary of the battle, the children who had been saved gathered at that statue. They were no longer children anymore. They had grown into doctors and teachers, engineers and artists, but they remembered. They remembered the dark days of siege. They remembered the fear, and they remembered the single ship that had appeared from the void and changed everything. One of them, now an old woman with faded blue skin, visited the statue for the last time. She placed a flower at its base and spoke softly. "Thank you," she said, "for showing us that we mattered, for showing us that the universe was not empty and cold, for showing us that somewhere someone cared." She looked up at the stars. "Wherever you are, Captain Lee, I hope you know. You saved more than our lives that day. You saved our faith. You saved our hope. You saved our belief that good exists in this galaxy." The stars twinkled in response, endless and eternal, cold and distant, but no longer empty. Because somewhere out there, humans were still flying, still answering calls, still coming when no one else would. And that made all the difference. The story of the Defiance spread across 10,000 worlds. It became myth, legend, a tale told to children before bed, a lesson taught in schools, a reminder that courage was not about winning. Courage was about trying. And as long as humans existed, they would keep trying. Because that was who they were. That was who they would always be. The ones who came,